Excellent.
Okay, Candace, so great to see you. How have you been?
So good. Thank you. Actually, just coming back from Oklahoma last night where I survived the tornadoes.
I saw, what were you doing in Oklahoma?
I was speaking at OU, actually. I have a friend who, her family has a family bank, and they sponsored books, and they're all OU alums, and they wanted me to go talk to the OU Price College there, which was really fun. I love getting in front of students.
So, Candace, one thing that I've always said, there's particular people that I'm drawn to who I want to speak with. One, it's people that have passion for what they do, whatever that is. I don't care if you're sweeping the floors or you're the CEO, are you in love with life in some way? So, okay, you check that box. The other, it's people who make changes in life and continually grow. I see this in your life. So I want to know, what does growth mean to you? What, as a value, what does that mean to you?
Growth means not being complacent and never being satisfied with being complacent. Continuing to take risks, push yourself out of your comfort zone. And as a result, you're going to encounter some failure, but you're also going to encounter growth, which of course is, to me, that's what it's all about. Continuing to figure out what you're capable of ultimately.
Yeah. What's your definition? And I think this is a big one. I'm sure you follow Brene Brown.
Yes. Yes.
We all love
Brene.
her. We all love her. She said one thing that really resonated with me, and it was that perfectionism is a hustle. It's not about being perfect. It's appearing perfect, not letting people see those failures or those weaknesses or those struggles. So what does failure mean to you? Because I feel like if you haven't failed, you haven't been trying something. But is your relationship with failure, has it changed over the years?
It's changed so much. First of all, I let go of perfectionism a long time ago. Perfectionism has no place in being an entrepreneur. I think for me, failure, how I would define it now, is that you don't try. But I think that's very different than what society deems failure. Society deems failure as a bad grade or a failed business or a public embarrassment. But as an entrepreneur, failure is inherent in the journey, because if you're not failing, you're not taking those risks. And if you're not failing, you're not learning from those failures and learning to iterate and pivot and, go in the direction you were meant to be. I think life without failure is, first of all, pretty dull life.
Yeah.
But one that is very, devoid of the all important lessons.
I'm stealing this question. I think it's Tim Ferriss who asks it, but my brother listens to this podcast, but he always asks, what is one of your favorite failures? Meaning a failure that defined who you are, taught you a lesson. But I love that phrase. Does a favorite failure come to mind for you?
There's so many.
I failed so much.
How much time do we have here? I think one of the failures that continues to plague is a strong word, but one of the failures that I am constantly still mulling over is the failure, so to speak, of Sprinkles ice cream. And the reason why it's so intriguing to me is that Sprinkles, by so many definitions, Sprinkles ice cream, by almost any definition, was a success. It was a great product. It had a fantastic following, but ultimately didn't succeed because I took my eye off the ball. Really, I was building towards a vision of a national cupcake bakery, Sprinkles Cupcakes. And I got seduced by, that sort of shiny, bright object syndrome. I wanted to do something new and creative. And so I did that by, launching this new brand within Sprinkles Cupcakes, Sprinkles Ice Cream. And it just never lived up to what I was initially setting out to do. The business model wasn't as, robust as Sprinkles Cupcakes. And it just sort of diluted all of my efforts in general. And ultimately we had to shutter that part of the business. So that's a really interesting failure for me, because it was, by many, many people thought it was a success because they loved the product and they lined up for it. but it ultimately did not succeed.
So what was that lesson? Was that lesson to keep your eyes on the prize? Was it not to overextend yourself? If you had to put it into a bite size, what was the lesson of going through that?
I think everything you do has to be so intentional. And if this is what I've learned over the years, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And there are, if there are so many exciting things, particularly as a creative person with a lot of passion, like there's a lot I want to do, but you can't say yes to everything, even things that feel like they're made for you. There are so many hours in the day, and you have to be really strict with your priorities in terms of how you spend your time. So if you think, oh, that sounds like a great idea, let's do it, that's not good enough. You have to put 150% in. And that's why Sprinkles was successful at the end of the day. Sprinkles Cupcakes was because I put my whole heart and soul into it. And I galvanized a whole team to do the same thing.
If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. We need to put that on a t-shirt.
Let's do it.
I mean, come on, but it's that gut thing. It is that gut thing, even if it doesn't make sense to other people. Okay, so I want to talk about this book. I came out, I got it, I've been reading it. I absolutely love it. There's a mix of your own personal story, but then also lessons that apply to us all. When did you first have the idea that I need to sit down and write this book? There's something, hell yeah, there's something in me that I want to put out there on a page.
I had always thought about writing a book. I had been approached multiple times, but it never felt right to me because people were approaching me with this idea of writing a memoir. And I really wanted to write more of a guidebook. Obviously, I wanted to share the stories and the lessons I'd learned in building Sprinkles, but I didn't feel that my life was, not to be too humble, but really worthy of a memoir. And I wanted it to be more about giving actionable tools to other aspiring entrepreneurs. So when my agent finally said to me, doesn't have to be a memoir, it can be whatever you want it to be, that sort of released these expectations. And I sat down during the pandemic, which ended up being a really great time with the calendar cleared to write a book. And it was such an incredible experience for me because as an entrepreneur, as a mom that's always on the go, I never have an opportunity to sit down and reflect on where I've been.
Yeah. That's interesting you say that because as a journalist, an interviewer, a storyteller, one of my favorite things about my job is I feel conversation and connection. I feel it's a holy thing. This might be a little woo-woo, but
I love the woo-woo.
I know I'm down with the woo-woo. But my favorite thing is talking to a person and then presenting them with a portrait of what I see. Because every day we work so hard, day in and day out, and we don't take stock of what we've done. So I would have to think that for you to sit down and really say, my God, I did that. I left that comfortable world. I created this. But do you think you really felt it in a deeper way than you had before?
Oh, absolutely. I never pay any attention to what I've done right. It's all about self-flagellating about what I did wrong.
Yes.
And so to sit down and give air to the things I did that were right and courageous and brave and give myself a pat on the back and be proud of myself for a moment, that was a real gift. That's not something that I often do. So it was an incredible therapeutic journey for one,
I'm sure.
to sit down and write about my journey in building Sprinkles. And then also it's been just so incredibly rewarding to see how those stories are resonating with aspiring entrepreneurs. And frankly, this book isn't just for entrepreneurs, right? It's for anybody who's looking for the courage to go after a dream.
Yes.
So I'm hearing from women and men and founders and non-founders alike that they have just found it really inspiring. And that is everything to me.
That was going to be my next question to you. Now, you had this book in you, you wanted to put it out. What is a response that you've heard or a conversation that you've had on the book tour where you said, if nothing else, this feedback lets me know I did the right thing. This was worth it.
It's incredible the number of DMs that I have received on Instagram. And actually, I keep like a little folder on my iPhone. I screenshot each one because they don't always go to Amazon. I'm like, could you please write that on Amazon as a review? But they don't. They just come directly to me. And I think that's great because they feel connected with me, right?
Yeah.
They feel that after reading this book, they have an intimate connection with me, which they do. And I've heard everything from thank you, that chapter gave me the courage to go after XYZ to I had my entire marketing team listen to this chapter so we could rebrand and talk about our vision and our mission. Somebody wrote the other day, this book was flippin' phenomenal in all caps. I mean, I read every DM and every review and every post, and it just makes my heart sing, truly.
I know you do, because when you respond, I'll message you. I'm going to say it right now. I'm a fangirl, but like when you respond, like my husband will be sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, she just responded to me. But it is that connection, and you can feel it. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just have a few more questions.
Of course.
This idea of fear. People are afraid to leave something that's familiar, but uncomfortable. They're afraid to go out. Did you talk to me about your experience in that? Because you were doing something, you were in a field that paid well, there was a future. Yes, there were ups and downs, but if you had stayed in that, you'd have a very financially lovely life. The fear of making a change. I mean, how did you navigate that? And then what's your message for anyone?
It's so uncomfortable, right? The fear, but the growth that comes with it, that's the gift, right? And so I look back on those early days when I left that high-paying job and I set out on my journey and veered off the conventional path. And I think about how lonely it was and how scary it was. But I think I was fueled not only by this idea, right? This passion, this fire in my gut about cupcakes and how much I love them, but also fueled by the fear of not doing it. Because the regret that I would have felt if I had sat on the couch and watched someone else run away with my dream. That was the worst fear I could possibly imagine. I think the fear doesn't go away, but you get better at dealing with it. And you're not going to like it when I say this, but the only way to get better at dealing with fear is to keep putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations, because it becomes a muscle that you flex and it just gets stronger.
It's interesting recently, and we all go through chapters of our life, but I'm considering making some very big changes. And what's very interesting to me is in the last 2 months, the amount of times in interviews I have talked to people and they have said, do it afraid. I feel like I hadn't heard that before, but I want to say, like, we're up to, I have to count on both hands on this. Do it afraid. And that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. In fact, I now have reframed fear where if I am sort of fearful of something, I am now drawn to it. It's sort of like, throwing down the gauntlet, like, oh, I'm scared of that. I'm going to walk towards it now. I'm going to, intentionally walk into that fire, because obviously that's something that's holding me back. And I need to challenge myself to deal with it. And so in sort of stepping into each and every fire and emerging on the other side, whole, you realize what you're capable of.
Yeah. I want to talk to you a little bit about your social media. It's always been fantastic. But recently, when you were talking about that marketing, I have seen this shift where the intention, from my observation, is really to give people information of value, of even the practicalities, where you said, hey, back in the day, I wasn't doing my hair. I wasn't doing this. I made these changes. That was right for me. Why has it become important to you? And how does it feel? Because I think teaching is it gives to others, but it gives to you too. How does it feel to be putting that out there? Information of true value. Another woman who does this is Barbara Corcoran on social media that I love. But that's what I'm seeing right now. So am I imagining this, or is this intentional?
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm so happy that you think I'm putting content of value out into the
Yes.
world. It's certainly my goal. Sometimes, social media can feel like a little bit of a content hamster wheel, but I'm
Mhm.
always trying to add value. And I think it's in how you do it, right?
Yeah.
I want to be authentic and I want to be approachable. Like business doesn't have to be dry, right? This is business told my way. And these are life
Mm.
lessons that I've learned by taking all of the hits.
All
So
of the hits.
all of the hits. And I just the hits keep coming. But as long as you keep getting up and live to tell the tale, hopefully someone will be able to benefit from that. And, I just am so thrilled to hear that it's resonating. But, after, I stepped away from Sprinkles in 2012, we sold the company, a majority stake in the company. And I realized that there were a lot of women out there who needed help and needed
Yeah.
guidance. And I have always struggled with wanting to do more of that, but
Mm.
there are only so many hours in the day. And so in, creating my content, in writing this book, it's all about trying to help more women at scale.
Yeah.
And, putting myself out on social media, that's the best way I know how to do it. That or TV.
You're doing great on both accounts. You talk about stepping back. When you made the sale, the sold part of Sprinkles, I think people can be afraid of that too. The idea of, so my parents are small business owners and they sold their small business. They're focusing on their real estate. And I was watching the ego shift or the identity shift in them that I was this thing. Now I'm something different. From the outside, I was saying, guys, you're just moving your energy from one thing to the next where it will better serve you. What would be your message to somebody about whether it's stepping back or reframing or realigning that energy?
Mhm. I think sometimes it's hard when you're so focused on a dream and you realize that dream.
Yeah.
You don't think beyond it because you think, oh, I've made it. That's success. It'll be happily ever after. But life is long and it is
Yeah.
all about that evolution and that growth. And so I would say it's time to dream a bigger dream.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, for your family, for your children, what do you want them to know about creating the life that they want? Do you guys have these conversations, or is it more they look at you and they see how you conduct yourself? I mean, what are the conversations you have with your kids about this?
Yeah. We talk about this stuff so much. In fact, every night at the dinner table, I make my kids groan. They roll their eyes at me because I always ask them what they failed at that day. How did you guys challenge yourselves? How did you step out of your comfort zone? What did you fail at today? Because I really think that our society does a terrible job at this.
Mm.
We want to focus on the success, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and we have no idea what it took to get there. And particularly in school, we reward kids who study and get the grade, of course, but as we know, all the lessons are in the failures. And I was just actually doing a piece of content. I'll give you a little preview about how I never gave the pop quiz enough credit as a student because
Uh,
I always felt like, just what is this? So outraged because I wanted to be that kid who had prepared and gotten the grade, and then I would be perfectly prepared for life. But it doesn't
mm,
work like that because life is about rolling with it and thinking on your feet
yeah.
and waking up every day and solving problems that you don't know if you're even going to be able to figure out.
Yes.
And so I am really trying to encourage my kids to embrace failure in a positive way.
I'll tell you, when I grew up, my dad used to make me, is it Carole King or Carly Simon? But he would make me recite the lyrics. You've got to get up every morning with a smile on your face and show the world all the love in your heart. And people are going to treat you better. You're going to find, yes, you will. You're as beautiful as you feel. But when I was
Oh,
13, doing that, I'd be like bawling and yelling at him and doing it. Now I look back, there's no groaning. I'm so grateful. And so I have no doubt that your kids are going to feel the same way.
oh, that's
Uh,
a beautiful story. I love that. There's a lot of wisdom in that.
Especially the 13-year-old crying saying it as I'm walking out. I'm going to get up every morning. Okay, final question for me, and I just have so appreciated your time. Do you have a final message to the world, whether it's the message you want from your book or from your own personal story, are you able to narrow that down to one sentence, one mantra?
Mhm. Dream big and bet on
Mm,
yourself.
mm,
Big and bet on yourself. And I'll elaborate I know you said one sentence, but I'm just going to elaborate on that in case it's
bring
not
it.
totally clear. I used to sit on the couch and watch the world go by and think everyone who was starting businesses, having success, that there was something innately unusual, unique, different about them.
Mm,
There's not.
mm,
They just took action on their dreams. And it doesn't have to be big action. It can be small, one
yeah,
foot in front of the other action until
yeah.
you start to build that confidence and develop that momentum. But there's nothing unique about those people. It's in all of us.
Mm. I think somebody should trademark the phrase "just do it." You know,
I think you're onto something.
I think I might be. I want to thank you for your time. From sprinkles to Pizzana, come on, I'm in love, to your book. I can't wait to see what's next, and I can't wait to share this with our audience. But also, this has just been absolute pleasure for me. So I thank you for your
Oh,
time. I know you're busy, but this has just been just so lovely. So I appreciate it.
I love and anytime I get with you, you're such a beautiful soul. And I'm really honored that you read my book. I really
Oh,
am. Like I'm
oh
always,
yeah.
doesn't matter how many interviews I do, I'm always like, you read it? Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yes. Highlight it, read it. Yes. Oh, yes,
Oh,
yes, yes. Loved, loved,
I
loved, loved.
really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'm kind of curious, you piqued my curiosity. I'm interested to see what you're up to and what changes you're making. So,
I'll keep you updated.
okay.
I will keep you updated, and I might pick your brain on some things.
Happy to. Anytime, please.
And I know you actually mean it. That's the crazy thing.
No,
Like,
really, I do.
I know.
Okay, good. I'm glad you know that.
no, I'm like, she really means it. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Hold
Okay.
on.